Okay, well, welcome everybody to the African Discussion Forum as part of the CIDOC conference, which was to have been in Geneva and which is now taking place all around the world. I hope your own personal situation is not too uncomfortable. I know it's pretty cold here in Geneva today. So we've got just about 2 hours to talk from now until 4 o'clock. We do have to finish promptly on time because there is another session starting just after this one. However, that gives us a good amount of time to have a good conversation. I'm chairing this session. However, I don't want to do a lot of talking. I'm just here to facilitate the discussion and make sure that everything runs smoothly. One question about language. My maternal language is English. Je parle français aussi. Et posso falar português também. If you want to speak French or Portuguese, that's okay. We can translate that. If you'd like to send messages in the chat, if you're shy about speaking, that's all right too. So, does anybody have any questions just about the forum and running? Any practical issues? Okay, so what I'd suggest for the discussion is that we concentrate on 3 different questions. I've got them here after the introduction. The first one is the challenges faced by museum documentation in Africa. That's something we need to get a good idea about. Standards, possibly, if there are any standards that you use or that you need, and training, that's a special interest of mine. And I'd like to wrap up by seeing if we can't put together some sort of message for CIDOC about documentation in Africa to highlight your points. You've got 2 members of the ICOM executive board here today in the meeting. So we're listening to you, and I'm sure we'll do our utmost to pass on the messages from today's discussion, not just to CIDOC, but to the executive board as well. Terry, would you like to say a little bit about your role as a member of the executive board in Africa?
Thank you very much, Nick. Good afternoon, everyone. It is good to be part of this African Forum on Documentation. I'm here with interest as an African museum professional, also as a member of the executive board. Africa is certainly very important for us as ICOM, and we would like to see African colleagues or African museums also rise to high levels as their fellow other museums around the world. And certainly documentation is kind of the backbone of what museums are. We cannot say we are owners of the collections that we have in our museums if we cannot document them well. So documentation turns out to be very, very important. However, it has been a challenge for most museums in Africa. But this challenge is not only for African museums. As Nick will tell you, many museums around the world still grapple with the aspects of documentation. But we are happy that CIDOC could prepare this forum for African colleagues to talk about their challenges. And certainly, the ICOM Executive Board is very much interested in seeing works done, much more works done by international committees with colleagues from the African continent, or maybe I should just say not only Africa, but the global north cooperating with the global south. There is very little cooperation that's been happening, and would like to see more of that happening within our ICOM community. And I think this step that CIDOC has made of organizing this particular forum is really great, and we hope for the best things going forward. Nick, thank you very much. I do not want to take much time. I'm sure we have time to talk much more, and we'll be listening, and certainly we'll take some issues back to the board to see how we can continue to work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Terry. So if are there any other points that somebody would like to add to the agenda? This isn't a formal meeting, it's an informal discussion, so it's quite possible to talk about other things if you want to. Are there any points that you'd like to add onto the agenda? Or maybe you'd like to change something? No comments. I can't see any hands being waved. So, okay.
It looks good. It looks good to me, Nick, the way it is. And if we have any other issues, I'm sure we can have at the end any other business. And if anyone thinks of anything else, we can always add to it.
That's absolutely right, Terry. We can add things in as we go along. This doesn't have to be, this isn't a formal debate. It's a free form discussion. I just wanted to give us a little bit of structure so that we could, organize our thoughts a little bit. Okay, so with that, let's move on to the next, the first topic, which is challenges. I deliberately picked this picture with the birds on it because if you know what the context is and what the challenges are, then you can plot your course and know where you're going. If we don't know what the challenges are, then it's difficult to, well, it's very easy to get lost. I'd like to ask you each in turn, because there are not very many of us here. I think it's there are what 7 participants, including me, 8, including the organizer from Geneva. So we've actually got time to go around and talk, each of us. Could you tell us perhaps a little about your local institution where you work and what sort of challenges you face? What are your priorities? Shall we start off with, I'm just looking at the list of people here. Shall we start off with, get the list to open. There we are. Shamu, who was taking us for a walk earlier. Yes.
Hello.
Hello, Shamu. So could you tell us a little bit about the context where you work and the sort of challenges you face, please?
Hello.
Hello, Shamu.
Hello, I can hear you now.
Oh, good. Okay.
I was away from the network.
Well, yeah, well, that's part of the context and the challenges. Could you tell us a little bit about the sort of work you do, the institution you're in, and what are the challenges you're facing?
Okay, thank you so much. I work for the Livingstone Museum. I'm the assistant conservator under the natural history section. Yeah, normally my job is quite simple but involving. We are the ones I'm the one in charge of taking care of our specimens. So in Africa, as always, sometimes we have challenges we don't really have courses as per se to do with museology. So we depend on the Western countries to facilitate on such. Yes, so I think that's the main challenge. Otherwise, I'm able to do my works as prescribed. Thank you.
Okay, so if I've understood that rightly, you're saying that the major challenge you face is to do with training, organizing education. Is that right?
Yes, to do with conservation, museology studies, yes.
Okay, thanks very much, Shamu. Shall we go on now to, let's see, who is next here? Well, who feels like talking straight off? Is somebody ready? Precious, I can see you.
Hello.
Hello, Precious.
Hello, my name is Precious. Are you getting me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay, from Lusaka National Museum. I'm the curator of ethnography. We do a lot of things, like in the Lusaka National Museum. I have to mention that at the moment, I would say curators do documentation, we put up exhibition, but I have to mention that one of the challenges that we have, just like Shamu has mentioned, it's the capacity building, the training in terms of documentation systems that are used. We don't have any training, and mostly the documentation that happens, it's on a, I would say, job on training. The other thing is the maybe lack of documentation systems, the online documentation or soft type documentation systems we do not have. I have to mention that we are not all that up to date. Mostly we use the manual type of documentation. We do not have any systems, I have to say, or the systems that we use sometimes they're quite limited. Then the other thing that we face, I would say, in the documentation area is I would say when it comes to the research, the objects, the provenance, we do not have a lot of information when it comes to the object. Sometimes we tend to ask ourselves, what is it that we are going to do? So you find that most of the objects that we have, they lack a lot of information. So I think through this discussion, through this forum, I'll be able to get more insights from the Western countries and from the colleagues within Africa and get to see what is it that we can forge ahead and move forward in the documentation system. Otherwise, we are looking up to this forum that we can discuss and get insights from the other members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Precious. So,
hello, Nikki.
So yes, that's fine. Thank you. So you're saying apart from training, you're concerned about the documentation systems. I guess you mean the
Yes.
sort of technical infrastructure and so on,
Yes,
the software
exactly.
or lack thereof.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. And you mentioned provenance as well as being an issue.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yes.
Shall we see who's next on our list? Who feels ready to say something?
Can I go? I'm Catherine Sterl.
Yes, please, Catherine, go ahead.
From South Africa. I will just do it now. So I'm Catherine Sterl from South Africa. I'm the chairperson of ICOM South Africa. And I'm also involved in another professional body in South Africa, the South African Museums Association. And so I will basically, so I have a fair idea of museums in our country, or I know most of them. So in general, our museums, we know the basics. We know how to do documentation. We have the processes in place. But also, Precious, you've talked about the online systems. For us, that is a bit of a challenge because many of our people will still use Excel spreadsheets, you know, to do how to file or to document the artifacts, and everyone uses a system that works for them. I work for a corporate company, and they have a museum and an archives and an art gallery. So I'm very fortunate that this company also have their own IT system or IT department. So I was able to actually tell IT what I want, what kind of system they have to create for me. So we have a different so we have a totally different system. But what also happened is the South African Heritage Agency, they have created a system for our museums a few years ago. And it seems that many museums are using that because it is easy and it is free of charge. But you know what, another challenge for us is that we also have a group of people that came from other disciplines, into the museum sector. And so they have no prior experience or even learning of the sector. So now we have to train them. And like you've all already mentioned, training is a challenge for us here in South Africa. So the South African Museums Association, SAMA, we try to assist our members in that regard, but still it is a challenge for us. So what we have now is that you have your experienced staff that knows everything, but because they know everything, I also believe that you must give people, I believe in training, and people must get at least like a refresher, and then you have these other group of entry-level people that you have to train, So a challenge for us, well, not maybe a challenge, yes, and museums not always have the manpower to do the training, or even the money. So that is just from our side. Any
Okay. Thank you very much, Catherine. That's very helpful. So again, the theme of training, but I think you were talking about advanced training and making sure that everyone's at the same level.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay, shall we go on? I can see there's someone on my list, Ingrid Fiorante. Maybe not. Seems to be well. Ingrid, are you listening? I'll come back to Ingrid. Martha.
Can I? Oh,
yes,
okay.
Terry.
No. I didn't realize there was still another one. Let Martha go on.
Oh yes,
I'll talk after.
There's Martha and Bonadiep, it says.
Okay.
Although I'm not quite sure that's.
Nick, that's
Martha.
me. That's me.
Okay, please. So tell us a little bit about your context and the challenges you face.
But I'm just a facilitator.
Oh, sorry.
So
right.
I don't know
sorry.
why I'm connected twice.
It's
very
realize.
strange. Sorry.
Okay. That was.
So I can tell you more about my context, but
well,
it's not going to
yes.
bring anything in this discussion. So anyway.
Actually, it could be interesting because I think it emphasizes that the problems we face, some of them are the same. And so do tell us where you work and a little bit about what you do.
I work for the Museum of Art and History of Geneva, and I work for Dominique Raimondino.
Okay, and
well, I'm just facilitating the session today.
Have you been listening at all?
Not very much. We have many other issues on the other sessions, so we are running from one session to the other.
Okay.
So I'm very happy this one is working very well.
It's working very well, thank you.
Yes.
Could you just tell us, I mean, Terry mentioned at the outset that some of the challenges that people face are the same all over the world. And I was wondering, Jennifer, I think I might need to mute Jennifer's.
Yeah.
If I can find it.
Yeah, she's muted now.
Okay, thank you. You were quicker off the mark than I was. So the participants have been mentioning problems with training and with software systems, infrastructure. Are those problems that are faced in Switzerland as well, do you think?
I can't tell you. I'm really not specialized in that domain. So no, I wouldn't. Okay. I would have to ask Dominic to come online to tell you that. Maybe he can jump in later in the session.
That would be interesting.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah?
Okay.
Okay, I will tell you.
Okay. Well, thank you anyway. So let's go back to Martha, if we can. See if Martha's available. Hello, Martha. Could you tell us a bit? Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Ah, good. So, Martha, could you tell us a little, please, about where you work and the sort of challenges you face?
Yeah, I work for the Eastern Museum in Zambia, and I'm the assistant teacher of entomology. So yeah, I do document the things that I collect. And, some of the challenges that I face, most of the ones that have been brought up. The main challenge is infrastructure, lack of advanced software that we can use, something that's that can be accessed even as people change in terms of manpower. To say if someone comes to the museum, they can still follow up with the documentation system very well. Because you will find that most of the documentation that we do is it can easily be lost because it's not uploaded on the internet or we don't have a backup for it. So there's a very high risk of losing information. So I think that's a challenge because there's not it reduces the trust in the documentation system that we have because there's no backup, it's not uploaded anywhere. For most of the time, we use like Excel, and we're still developing, trying to develop something that we can use that can at least boost up our documentation, and just so that we have a backup. I think that's the main challenge that we have. And also, if I can speak for people that are in social sciences departments, because they're the ones that sometimes want to document intangible heritage, like songs, music, videos. We also don't have a system that's you are able to input that. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, Martha. The sound is getting really very bad. Could you perhaps try turning your video off? It might improve the sound quality a little because you're breaking up a lot.
Okay, I didn't realize that it was on. Yes, did you get the part where I was trying to elaborate the challenges that they may have also like in social sciences in terms of documenting videos and songs, intangible heritage. They don't have a system where they can document that because they just use Excel and all these systems that don't have a provision for that. So that's the other challenge. It's hard to document intangible heritage in terms of those social sciences. Even in natural history where I worked, if you want to include some aspects, even pictures, the documentation system I use does not have pictures. So I just use descriptions on hard copy or Excel or just Microsoft things. Yeah, so I think that's the main challenge, just having an advanced software where we can document and upload things and have proper backup.
Okay, Thank you very much. I'm afraid the sound quality was not good. I was having a little bit of difficulty understanding, but what I gathered, what I did get from what you were saying is that you have problems with your infrastructure and particularly the software, which you find doesn't actually meet your needs, your requirements correctly, that there are aspects of it that are, there are shortcomings. So you end up using Excel and other pieces of software instead of the application that you'd like to use. Is that a fair summary of what you were trying to say?
Yes, it is. And just to add on that, most of the museums that we have in Zambia, maybe because of that challenge, people come up with their own ways of documenting the things that are documented depending on the sections they're in. But there's a lack of uniformity in terms of how different museums in Zambia are documenting their things. So each museum may come up with their own way in which they think is best suited just to try and achieve that proper documentation, but the uniformity is not there. So it makes things hard in terms of sharing data or just having that standard.
Yes, definitely. I understand what your frustration, where you're coming from. In fact, the whole problem internationally with standards is very similar. I have a friend who used to be the responsible for collections documentation in the United Kingdom, and he always used to say that standards, the problem with standards is that they're like toothbrushes. Everybody thinks they're a good idea, but nobody wants to share them. And everybody, of course, that's true. Everybody makes their own standards, and that rather defeats the object. Shall we go on now? Who else is there? Who have I missed? Jennifer, I think. Jennifer Yamakando. Would you like to say something?
Hello, Imakando is me, so I don't know if you're still talking to me or if you're referring to someone else.
Yes. Sorry, it was Martha. Yes, sorry. Yes, my list was jumping about. I got confused. So yes, please do tell us about your context and the challenges you face.
I think I'm just from explaining that. Yes, I'm still the previous speaker that was telling you about the challenges that we have.
Yes.
Yes, so I think maybe you're asking someone else, or is it still me?
No, let's see. Well, let's go on to somebody else if we can. Antoinette in Namibia, perhaps. Antoinette.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, fine. Thank you.
Yes, another challenge that because the museum where I'm currently working, it was way back in 2010. We went for training for this Museum D system, and all of a sudden, after a few years, I don't know what happened. We were told that the EU, what is the term in business terms, some kind of agreement or EU agreement has expired, and as a result, currently we don't have an online cataloging system, which forced me, as a result, I had to revert back to the normal manual cataloging in old catalog books. So currently here in Namibia, Namibian museums currently do not have a centralized, unified system for cataloging. It's not. Oh, there's a lot of noise.
Yes, if you've got your microphone on, this is to everybody. If you're not speaking, could you mute your microphone, especially if you have the loudspeaker. Thank you. Okay, please, Antoinette, try again. You've muted your microphone, Antoinette. So that's better. Good.
Okay. Yes, I wanted to say currently in Namibia we don't have a centralized cataloging system, and particularly for culture history, because I'm a culture historian and I work in a predominantly culture history museum, but we have few natural sciences specimens. But currently, yes, due to the absence of a centralized online, because the museum D system, which was launched by the website Cultural Heritage CC, or they were operated under that name. Apparently, the EU agreement expired, and now currently we are without any. So, which means that I had to revert back to the normal manual cataloging in files.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, thank you. I see the problem. So it's not just a technical issue; it's a legal problem, in fact, or a commercial problem, that the software you had ceased to be available. Was the system, the technical system you were using before the agreement expired, was it satisfactory?
The Museum D was the first online cataloging that I used. I haven't used anything before, and I did my own research on Google, but I could not find any free, because you see most of our museums are short, cash strapped. We don't have the sufficient funds, because most websites want you to subscribe and pay an annual monthly membership, and I could not find anything on Google, any alternative system which I can use, which is free of charge.
And
So,
are you doing your cataloging in English?
yes, English, because it's the national language, the official national language. We have to do it in English. Yeah.
Okay, because yes, there are some systems available that are free of charge, and perhaps that's something that CIDOC could look into, making sure that the information is available for museums in Africa, so that you know where to look. Sometimes the free software, even if it exists, it's not easy to find. So is there anybody else? Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to tell us about their situation and the challenges they face? Have I missed
Nick,
anyone?
can I say something?
Yes, do, please. I was going to come back to you. So please jump in, Terry.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Nick. I'm happy to hear challenges coming from South Africa, Namibia, and many colleagues from Zambia. Well, in the number of years, very few years that I've worked in the museum and interacted with some African colleagues, one of the major challenges that is causing some of the challenges that have been mentioned is the lack of financial resources, mainly by museums, in order for them to do many other aspects that help for documentation to be well in their museums. For instance, there is also in many museums, not just in Zambia, but from other colleagues I've interacted with, they don't have much manpower of individuals that could be dedicated to doing documentation in their museums, and it's one of the challenges. And the lack of this is mainly on capacity building. So also they have don't have, if they have manpower within the system, this manpower doesn't have enough knowledge or expertise to carry out documentation, because maybe in their countries they don't have institutions that offer studies. For example, here in Zambia, I think one already mentioned, we don't have an institution that does or provide education in terms of museum studies. And so if one has to undertake museum studies, they have to maybe go South Africa in Western Cape to attend some training course in heritage studies, or go up north in Europe to go and do their studies. So that is one of the challenges, and the technical aspects has already been mentioned. Standards and uniformity is certainly a big challenge. One here just mentioned that you find there is differences between the way museums, even in one country, are documenting their aspects. But there is this interdifference also within the institutions at times of museums. The way one wing of the museum, say a section of archaeology, are doing it is not well related with the other sections in that particular museum. And then when you come even to the same discipline, say history, and the way the curator who was there was documenting 25 years ago is different from the way the one who was there 10 years ago, and is different from the one who was there 5 years ago. And then a new curator comes and doesn't know how to which one to follow at times. And so standards still are a challenge. In some institutions, it's the turnover, Nick, of personnel. So in the institutions, personnel are changing, and there is no proper handover to the people that come next to tell where they left from, documenting stuff. And so you find there are many gaps that are there in terms of documenting collections that are in people's custody, and because of not having proper documentation, then it has also that effect that makes it very difficult when there is, for instance, theft in institutions of especially cultural heritage material. It is difficult to claim it back because of so many gaps that that people have in their documentation system. But above that layer of these challenges per institution, I do also see another challenge that is at a different layer: the lack of synergies between museums in our countries, but also in regions as Africa and as Africa as a whole. I'm talking about synergies in the sense that each one of us have their own challenges, but even with these challenges, there are local solutions that individuals have. But because people don't interact, there is no synergy, they don't.
Yes, Terry?
Aspects that they are doing. Thank you.
I think, Terry, your sound cut out a little bit just at the end, but
yeah. So I was just saying in a nutshell that there is lack of synergy between museum professionals in our region. People don't meet regularly. What you find as a challenge in your institution may be a piece of cake in another institution regarding documentation. But because there is no this synergy of exchanging ideas, meeting, then it becomes a big problem. Thank you.
right. So so far I've noted as general problems then quite a lot of concern with technical systems, software, and so on. Questions about training. Question about resources, both financial resources and manpower, getting people to find things, and Terry's mentioned questions about synergy, actually working together to make the most out of what you do have, what's available. Are there any, do you think, are there any, would anybody like to add some other challenges that you face? Or does everybody agree that seems like a fair list? Or are there some other issues that would be important to add to that? You can write to me in the chat as well if you feel, if you're having trouble, technical problems with getting the sound to work or something. Okay, so I can't see any extra additional points to add to that. We're taking notes of this meeting and making a recording, so we'll be able to send you a resume of the discussions afterwards. So let's go on to our next section. Thank you very much, everybody, for contributing here. A little question about standards. I've put on the screen a picture of a book that was published in 1996. It's the Manual of Standards for Documenting Collections in African Museums that was published by ICOM in collaboration with UNESCO. And it became known as the AFRICOM standard. I've got a copy of it, which is printed in paper. It's in English and in French, and it covers natural history collections and artifacts. I was wondering, it's quite a good book. I must say, it's well written. It's very thorough. It gives vocabulary. It lists all the types of information you need to record. Are you familiar with this book? Is it used, or I mean, it was published quite a while ago in 1996. Perhaps you know of it. I'd be interested to know if you use this standard, and if not, what sort of standards do you use? Maybe you've got something to say on that subject. So, anybody?
Nick, I can have a go. Can I have a go?
Yes, please do.
Yes. So we do have that book, as you say, was the African Bible of documentation, if I could make a joke of it. But so for us as museums in Zambia, we went further in 2000 to have some big training workshop for museum curators, and where some standards were done for at least manual documentation of our collections, building on what was done there. For my colleagues who are mostly here from Zambia, that could be a book they have seen before, but maybe not used it. But however, they are using the products that came from it. And like I said, also, there is a high turnover at times in museums around Africa, and so for some they do not find in museums that particular document, and they have no realization there was something like that was done. So actually, yeah, we built on it as Zambia, not only as Livingstone Museum, but as Zambia, and we have some form of collections forms that are kind of standardized. Thank you.
Terry, can I ask you, since you said this, as you said, it's a sort of Bible of documentation for Africa. Is it accessible? I can see one or two people have written to me on the chat asking where they can get hold of this document. Do you know where it might be possible for people to find it?
Well, in the museum, I have seen here in the museum, I have seen a few copies. I think we have a copy in the library, and I've seen with one other officer here. However, Nick, we would have to cross-check this. I think there should be a soft copy on some of the documents that ICOM has, either with the CIDOC or from the ICOM website. We can always cross-check that. There should be a soft copy certainly somewhere.
I did.
Which people can always download.
Actually, Terry, I checked just before this meeting, and there's a reference to it, but not the document. It's not possible to directly download it from the ICOM website. But do you think that would be, perhaps that would be useful for CIDOC to make this document available via the ICOM or the CIDOC website?
Yes, I think so. I think it would be a good idea for people to access it. But for those colleagues here in Zambia, I'm sure they have an opportunity to see it within the museum. But yes, Nick, let's go ahead and do that.
We'll have to make sure that we can get the copyright on the document. But as it's an ICOM UNESCO CIDOC production, that shouldn't be a problem, I hope. Okay, well, I've noted that. Are there any other standards or documents that are in use in Africa that are worth commenting on or mentioning? So what are you using in your institution as a reference? You know, a lot of institutions have their own local documentation. They have their own institutional standard. I know that's the case here for a lot of institutions in Switzerland. Perhaps it's the case in your institution as well. So it doesn't seem to be a subject that anybody has a strong desire to talk about. Yes?
I think it is also for others to say whether from Namibia, South Africa, if they have anything. Even the lack of something is true information for us.
Okay, Catherine, perhaps you'd like to jump in.
Nick, I actually agree with you. Same with us, South Africa. We follow our own institutional standard. But what I also remembered is in 2006, the South African Museums Association, they issued a professional standards and transformation indicators booklet. And that, I think back then it was supposed to become like now, you know, that it is a booklet that can be used or by museums, but currently I don't know the status of it. I don't know if museums are really using it or what they are doing with it, but there was a publication issued. But in general, museums just follow their own institutional standards. Yeah, I think for us in South Africa, policies are very important. So you have a policy for everything, collections policy, research policy, for everything, you know. So, and that is our guide as to how we do things this side. Yeah, in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you. That's I must say that's seems to be the case in a lot of institutions worldwide. That you know the international standards are not always used, or if they are used, they get adapted and changed a bit. But it's a good starting point. CIDOC has some very useful documents as well that are worth consulting. As I said, this African standard of for documenting African collections is available, and English and French. I was wondering if it would be, are there any Portuguese speakers in the meeting? Don't think so. No, because it has actually this, Terry, I don't know if you're aware of this, but this document has also been translated into Portuguese.
Yes, I am aware of that.
So it's, Terry, do you think this is still a good, worthwhile document, even though it was published in '96? I mean, does it, is it still applicable?
Yes, it's true that first the times have changed, and there are different situations in different countries, and people certainly do some adaptation like we did here in Zambia. But you still have certain states, for instance, if we're going to talk about colleagues, I have had colleagues say from South Sudan that are still a little bit with more challenges regarding doing museum work. And if we shared, for instance, a document like that, they would have some basis of where they can start from. But even for those that I have possibly say a little bit advanced, it's always a good thing to look at, and there's certainly some things they can pick out of there and do something with it.
Okay. Yes. I think, Terry, we've got some work to do to find this document.
We've got some work to do, and when we find it, Nick, maybe we still have some work to do to see if something can be done to update it to make it much more relevant to our current times.
Yes. Some people have been saying, you know, they're still using. Yeah, I should say this document, it doesn't presuppose that you're using a computer system. It's adaptable to a computerized system or to a manual paper-based system. So it could, in that way, it's that's a useful aspect of the document. But as you say, it probably needs to be updated to conform with the current situation and interests and focus and so on. That would be perhaps a project for ICOM. What do you think?
Yeah, we could attempt to put up something and see if ICOM can take up this project as something they would like to do for Africa. It's a possibility.
Okay, we'll note that as a possible point for ICOM to take forward. So, has anybody got anything else they would like to add about standards and what you're doing, and whether it's something that's of concern to you? I've seen there are a couple of messages from people asking where they can get hold of the document, and so we'll do our best to make sure it becomes available.
Yes, I think it's a thing we can always work on it and see if we can make it available. I was just looking through my drawers also. I was wondering if from the screen people could see what Zambia had created. We created a handbook. I'm not sure if you can see. Can everyone see? Can you see this, Nick?
I can't see it. Yes, I'll stop sharing my screen to give you a bit more space there. Yes, now I can see it.
Yes, a handbook on museum documentation system in Zambia. So beyond the meetings that were done in 2000, Zambia came up with this handbook, which is generally used as a guide for documentation for people doing documentation here in Zambia. So So from this handbook, we do have also what we have made called collection forms and for the different sections, and people can follow that. So this particular document came out of that ICOM Africa documentation handbook that was created, and this was adapted for Zambia. So I just thought of sharing this one. Apparently, we do not have this one on soft copy, but I would have loved if we had it in soft copy. We could have shared with our colleagues from Southern Africa, so they could just have a look of what Zambia has been doing in this particular aspect. Thank you.
Terry, about that document, how long is it? It looks fairly...
It is actually, yeah, it's actually very short. It's not so big. It just describes mostly terms. The thing is that it's too small, and I could show you, like, for the table of contents there, it's talking about documentation rationale in some previous analysis of the inadequacies that we had in the previous documentation systems, talking about the elements, form cards, registers, books, and guidelines on filling in documents that we had, and so on, and explaining inside what the different terms are and what they mean for filling in these forms to ensure that salient aspects of objects or specimens are captured at the point of documenting them.
And you said that the document analyzes some of the shortcomings with the previous system that you have. So that I take it
Yes.
the document would need, or that would also need to be updated now.
Yeah. I'm sure it does need updating, because now it's almost 20 years at this stage.
Does anybody have any documents or know of any documents that are similar to the one that Terry has been showing us? If you go rummaging through your drawers, as Terry just did. I have one that I'd like to show you. If you'll bear with me just a second, I'll go and fish it out. Here we are. This Terry has seen this document. Ah, yes, it's disappearing because of my blue background. I shall have to maybe change that. There, I think you can just about see it. It's the ICOM guidelines for object description, international guidelines for museum object information. This was published in '95, and actually it was one of the documents that was used as a basis for this one, for this document. And this is available online, and you can find it on the CIDOC website. It's available in English, French, and it has been translated into Portuguese as well. And that can actually be downloaded. It's free of charge. If you find it useful, that's what it's there for. It describes the typical information that you would need to record for either artifacts or for natural history collections, to make sure that you can, how can I put it? It's like a checklist that you can use to make sure you're not forgetting something straightforward or obvious that you would need for the museum to do its job properly. However, I think this manual for the African standards is definitely preferable for an African context, because it goes into more detail and it's more focused on African collections, whereas the CIDOC document is very general in scope. I'd like to know if anybody is familiar with this ICOM document. Maybe some of you have already had a look at it. Anyone? Maybe not. So I take it from the lack of response that nobody is familiar with this document yet. Well, perhaps I can recommend having a look on the ICOM website. I know Terry knows about it.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's and it does have the huge advantage of being available and free of charge, which is considerable. Okay, so we've had a talk about the challenges you face and a little bit about standards. And there was another point, the third point on our list was training, which we've already talked about a little. Now, CIDOC actually has a training program. I don't know, would you like me to explain a little bit about the training that's available from CIDOC? Would that be useful? What do you think, Terry?
Yes, Nick, it is very useful. Please do explain.
Okay, let me see if I can find a little bit of information about that. Here we go. From the slide. There we are. I'll share the screen with so you can see this. Okay, so about training. Let's see if we can find that. Here we are. Can you see this, everybody? The CIDOC training program?
Yes, we can, Nick.
Good. Okay, thanks for it's nice. It's reassuring when I know that it's working. Okay, the CIDOC has been running a training program for museum documentation since 2011. You can see 3 people there from the very first CIDOC summer school that took place in Texas in the United States. And the person on the left is Esther Chapusu, who's from
Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe, that's right. I was just trying to remember where she was from. She's from Zimbabwe. And she's sitting next to Julia from Germany and Tariana, that's her name. Tariana, she's from Brazil. So it's a very nice international workshop. We ran it every year until 2016 in Texas. We've run it in Brazil, in Portuguese, in Helsinki, in Finland, in Jyväskylä, Mexico, Estonia, and now Lausanne. And, we did some work in Quito in Ecuador as well. So these workshops run in the local language, so as much as possible. This is a typical week-long workshop program. It's hard work, parallel sessions in the morning and the afternoon, and a field trip on the Wednesday. And usually by the end of the week, most people are exhausted. And that's part of that we don't, I mean, the goal is not to make people exhausted, but we pack the work in. So we try to be as efficient as possible and get a lot done. This was organized in conjunction with this museum here, the Museum of Texas Tech in Lubbock in Texas. They run a master's program in museum science, but it's a very hands-on museum. All the students who are doing the master's program in museum science actually work in the museum as well. So it's a very practical training. And we're also partnering with this organization, the EPFL. It's the Polytechnic in Lausanne, where they have an organization called Art Lab, and EM Plus means the Experimental Museology Laboratory. And so we've been doing some training there as well. What we actually try to do primarily is train our trainers. So we want to make sure that we can not just train people, but we train people who can go off and train other people as well. So we prefer people who are museum professionals, not necessarily people with training experience. And we provide support material, teaching methodology, and that's to ensure consistency, the quality, and to make sure it's we get good results. If you're participating, you can be a local student or a visitor coming from somewhere else. And it's also possible to participate online, which might be particularly useful if you can't travel. We offer fee waivers for the registration fee as well. ICOM has a bursary program that you can use to get, if you do want to travel to one of the events. It's also possible to be an author or to train to become a trainer and participate that way. So the modules, the training modules, are mostly classroom-based, face-to-face in a traditional classroom setting, although there's a lot of hands-on practical work as well. Some of them are online, and I can give you a link to some online classes that you can look at. And we also have an independent study thing where you can do some research and write a paper that can be checked and graded and commented on by people from CIDOC. The classroom format is 3 hours, so that's 2 1.5-hour sessions, and those are divided up into 20-minute blocks, as it were, consisting of presentation, practical exercises, group work, and so on. We provide all the teaching material and guidelines about how to present the teaching material. It's designed to be adaptable, and we have to adapt everything, because what will work in Brazil won't work in Estonia, and that won't work in Africa. We have to adapt the fees because those change from one country to another. Also the background, the educational level in museum studies, the language, the organizational culture, and of course the museum tradition. Things work differently in different places, and we have to adapt to make sure that it's relevant to the local situation. So I'd say what makes it, the strengths of the program are that it's modular, so you can take little pieces, you can build the training program that you want individually. It's not just a course that you start and you go through. You can choose what you need from it. We're running in partnership with 2 academic institutions that helps ensure the quality. It's adaptable. We try to adapt things and change them to make sure that it fits people's individual requirements. We've got a quality control mechanism, so everybody gives us feedback and we can constantly improve things. And we've actually got a fairly reliable, solid business model. So we're not going to fold up and go bankrupt next year. We're financially solvent. If you'd like to organize it at your institution, and I've had a couple of comments already in the chat about this, you can organize it at your institution. What we need are access to some museum collections. That's an important part of the teaching. Some teaching facilities. That just means basically something like a classroom where it's possible for people to sit and concentrate for a while. Accommodation, of course, people will need to, especially if people are coming from abroad, they'll need somewhere to stay. So it's good to have some accessible and reasonably priced accommodation. Food is especially important. I don't know what your situation is, but I've noticed here in Switzerland, if you allow people to go out for lunch in the middle of a training session, they don't come back in the afternoon. People go out and have long lunches and they eat too much. So we like to provide food in sight. It's much more efficient, and of course people then get to know each other as well. We help to train local staff, local people to do the training, and it's also good to have some people available as assistants, because there are always little practical problems. People need to do some shopping or find their way around, or somebody's luggage breaks, or whatever. So it's good to have some people to help out and deal with the practical side of things. These are a few photographs from the workshop we did in Lausanne a couple of years ago on intangible heritage. You can see Manvi Sharma there, who's doing one of the seminars, actually immediately following this one. She's doing a discussion forum about intangible heritage. And we were doing a workshop on Kung Fu. And rather than just explaining to people what it was like trying to learn a new skill, we thought, well, let's have a go. And so we had somebody came around and tried to teach us how to do some Kung Fu. As you can see, we were outside next to the lake in Geneva, which is a pleasant place to be. And then afterwards, we take that back and discuss it and try to analyze how are we going to document what's going on and the experience. There's Manvi doing the workshops in Lausanne at the Experimental Museology Lab. That's the lake in Geneva, right next to where we're working. So if it gets too hot, you can go for a swim, talk to the swans, and so on. And that's the group that we were training. This was in conjunction with a symposium on intangible heritage at the EPFL. So everybody was able to take advantage, go to that as well. That's me sitting on the floor in the middle, as you can see. And we had a good time. It was our workshop in Lausanne a couple of years ago. Now, you've got my email address there, nicholas@crofts.ch. If you want to know more about this training program, please just get in touch with me, or you can find information on the CIDOC website at cidoc.icom.museum. And the link there at the bottom that I will put in the chat is for some material that's available online that you can look at. And I'll copy that for you and put it into the chat in just a second. See if I can get there. Here we are. So here we go. There's the chat, and the chat doesn't want to display while I'm showing my screen. Oh, there we are. So, got it. There. So you should have the link. In the chat. That if you click on that link, I will see if I can show that to you as well. I need to find a way to open that. It's not working at the moment. I think my computer is getting a little bit overloaded. Ah, there we go. So you share. There we are. There. Can you see that, Terry? List of online modules. I can't hear anybody. Is that working okay?
Nick, we
Yes.
we can see your CIDOC training online modules page.
Good.
So yes.
That's great. Thank you.
That's working. You're welcome.
Okay. So if you click on the handout on the link on the right here, you get access to a page for notes with all the slides. So you can take notes while you're doing the class. And the main link should open up. Now, I tried doing this the other day and it didn't work very well because I want to share the sound as well, and I was unable to do so. Is there a thing here? Share computer sound. There we go. We'll try this now. All right, so what we're talking about today is the introduction to museum documentation. I'm the chair of this committee, CIDOC. This course is intended for two groups of people. First of all, people interested in museum documentation. I imagine that's you, because you're here. But we're also running this course for people who are interested in using this material to teach about museum documentation. Okay. You don't have to know anything to be able to take this course. I'm not assuming that you have any experience in working in a museum. Now, this is what we're going to be going through. So I hope you were, I don't know if you could hear that. I hope you could.
Yes,
but you can see. Good,
we could hear
great.
it.
Well, that's great. It was working. So that's set up so that you can follow classes online. We've designed it so it's very low bandwidth, and you should be able to follow that even on a tablet or a phone or something. It doesn't require, it's not video, it's actually individual pictures. Antoinette is lying down. Hello, Antoinette. So if you want to, you can follow those classes. They're going to be available during the conference. So there are, I think, how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 modules there at the moment on different subjects. The ones that start with a 100 number are the foundation modules, and they get progressively more specific and more detailed as you go up. So I wouldn't, for instance, recommend starting with the 400 level module on ontologies. That's fairly complicated. Still, do you think that's, I'm curious to know if you're aware that this material was available, and do you think that it would be potentially useful? You know, what would you like to find? What would you like us to add? Terry.
Hi, Nick.
Yes.
Sorry, I got cut off for some time from network.
Yes.
So I missed what you just said. Sorry.
Okay. Well, we were just looking at the CIDOC material.
Yes.
Actually, I know you're familiar a little bit with the CIDOC training program.
Exactly.
Yes. Would you like to say a little bit about it from your perspective?
Well, first of all, I will say that I never participated fully in a one training workshop like you've been doing those in the USA. However, there has been one Zambian that has participated there, as you you well know, and that is bread. In the training program, and you have been doing those programs almost every time we have conferences, CIDOC conferences in different parts of the world. I must say that they're very good, and they will be good for Africans, especially for curators that are just kind of starting up, and they're just new in the museum. It gives them a good background of what is really expected of them when, as regards documentation of collections in the museum. You did talk about just before I got cut, or when I was just coming back in, that if you want to organize it as an institution, you could do certain things and you put the benchmarks that need to be there. I don't know if I'm putting the cart before the horse right now, but my proposal, Nick, would be that as we go on as Africa or as a region, maybe we could propose to do a regional workshop or conference or something like this, a regional workshop of young museum professionals into documentation, so that different young museum professionals can move from different parts of the region and come and participate in this training. Do one, for instance, for the English speaking, and move to maybe West Africa, and also do it for the French speaking countries. Much as we talked about, Nick, about redoing or making accessible that documentation book, it's something that we could explore and see if ICOM or other partners that ICOM has could think of sponsoring such a workshop on the African continent. I think it would be good for the participants here, for Africans, but I don't know what the other colleagues that are listening in feel about this proposal. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Terry. So, following Terry's question, what do you think? What's your point of view? I can see Precious is written in the chat. Precious, do you want to say something?
Yes, Nikki. Just like Mr. Terry has alluded to, we actually need this training. The training, if we are trained in this, then it would be easy to have the signage, like the interactions that we have on our own as Africans. But the proposal of the workshop, for me, it's a welcome move, and we are appealing to CIDOC to consider bringing those trainings to the African countries. We really need them. Thank you.
Thank you, Precious. I think Catherine was commenting as well. Would you like to add something?
Yes, we will. ICOM South Africa would like to be part of something like this. And I hope, I want to echo the idea of bringing this to Africa. And I like the idea of going into or doing it into different countries or on the continent. In that way, we will have a broader audience, but also with everyone with their own unique, how can I say, I don't want to say challenges, but expectations as well. And we can build onto that, because it seems as if we all have the same problem or the same need, but we are all scattered on the continent. So I like that whole idea of making it regional, and let it move around the continent.
Does anybody else have something to add on this topic? I mean, it seems that there's a consensus that you all agree that this would be something useful, that if we could organize some training programs on a regional basis.
Yes, I do support it. I think it's much needed.
Okay, Terry, what would the next steps be?
Yes, Nick, it's good that members from the region here that are present as Africans still express it as a need. We will have, first of all, from inside CIDOC, we could mention to CIDOC that when we had our African forum, colleagues from Africa expressed the need to have some regional workshop on documentation, because they just pointed out documentation is a challenge, and they would like CIDOC to move in and consider doing regional workshops on the African continent. And what CIDOC then certainly will have to do is to look around from whether there are minimal resources or from their partners to see if a project like that can be brought up and submitted to would-be funders, so that a regional workshop like that could be done. Then we could also go through ICOM and write to the Secretariat and see if there is any kind of subvention that could be given to CIDOC for such kind of training, since ICOM considers capacity building as a priority, and we even have an officer solely dedicated to capacity building at the Secretariat. And I think, Nick, we can follow up on this. And now, between you and me, with interest and being here, we could also bring up this, if need be, at the board at some point. Or if CIDOC writes to ICOM and then it comes to the board, we can always give that support and express the need for ICOM to really think of putting some resources into such a program to benefit Africa. So beyond that, it's not, whilst it is a need for us, but it is also a way of us as ICOM also making ourselves much more relevant to our community here on the continent. So it should be a benefit that ICOM members experience in the course of their membership in ICOM. So I think something like that should do, Nick.
Yes, I think we're actually probably in a good position, or at least a better position than we have been in the past. As you say, we've got ICOM's priorities set out, that they want to encourage capacity building. And the fact, yes, CIDOC, of course, wants to encourage this as well. And having two of us on the executive board of ICOM means that we can argue for and support such a project, which is quite, I think, puts us in a good position to perhaps get something done. Now,
that's
yes?
Right.
Yeah. Do you think you would,
I totally agree.
in terms of a regional approach, would that be sort of more or less on linguistic grounds or on geographical grounds, do you think?
Well, in both aspects, the thing that you realize when you do it regionally, for instance, in Southern Africa, we are maybe with 12 or 14 countries, say, and most of them do speak English, with the exception of two that we have. On our far right is Mozambique, and on our far left is Angola, which speak Portuguese. And if you go into East Africa, it will be English. You go in West Africa, you'll find most of them speak French, of course, with a few speaking English like Nigeria and so on. But most of those countries will be French speaking. So it will not be much of a problem because you have a substantial amount of countries that will speak one language if we do it regionally.
That's a good. So basically, we're talking about what, three regional programs?
Yes, we could do it that way. Yes.
And do you think who we'd need for each region? We need some people who would be willing to coordinate, and the sponsors of the project. Are there people here online now who would be willing to take on such a role?
Well, I think they are there. Zambia, Namibia, South Africa, I'm sure they could. But they're still thinking.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Catherine, South Africa will definitely be part of this. So I can definitely say, I will speak on behalf of my team. We will be part of this. It all depends what we have to bring to this. But I think we will be part of this.
That's very good. Okay, thank you. So we'll and if does anybody else want to?
Yeah, hi Nick, it's Dieter. To speak from our partner institutions, I've not introduced myself. I'm Dieter van Hassel, working for the Royal Museum for Central Africa in Brussels, interviewed in nearby Brussels, Belgium. And I think there's quite an interest in our partner institutes in the Democratic Republic of Congo to get some decent training as well. We are launching some initiatives, and I would look forward to do this in collaboration with CIDOC and the CIDOC Training Association as well. And I'll try to find some budget to organize something this year, or next year, 21. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say organizing it this year. That's a little bit optimistic, but but next year.
I've seen that there are no colleagues from Congo or Congo Brazzaville present right now, but I know there's an interest, and we should get things going, and in close collaboration with CIDOC, obviously.
Well, that's very encouraging.
Nick,
thank you very much. Yes?
Could I say something by our colleague from Tavuren?
Yes, do.
He's just mentioned our colleagues from Congo and others that are not here. Your name again, Data, if I'm correct, is it?
Yes, Dieter. Dieter.
Dieter. The thing is, for this particular meeting, for instance, is a CIDOC one, and the challenge that we have currently in Congo, for instance, or Congo Brazzaville, we don't have an active committee for ICOM in those particular countries, and we are actually trying to work very hard to see if we can revive the national committees, especially in Congo DR and many other countries in Africa, so that we can have a stronger African voice in ICOM. Maybe that is the challenge that is here, that they've been missed out on this particular information. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, Terry, because this, I think today's discussion forum perhaps wasn't sufficiently visible in the program. A couple of people have commented to me that they only found out, they only got the invitation quite late today. So my apologies for that on behalf of CIDOC. It was on the program, I know, but it wasn't as visible as it should have been. So that's probably why people missed it. In addition, other things that other problems people might be having. But this is pretty. I think this is encouraging. You know, there's I must say, in the past we have already tried to organize training events in various places, and we mustn't underestimate the complexity of doing that. There are always unforeseen things happening, and the situation is rarely as straightforward as we'd like it to be. But perhaps today we're in a better situation than we have been in the past. So I suspect that our chances of succeeding are better than they have been on previous occasions. Would you agree with that, Terry?
Yes, I totally agree with you, Nick.
Does anybody else have comments to make about the training, things that you'd like to see or concerns you might have, or does somebody want to offer to contribute or help in some way?
I think Precious had something to say. I saw her come online, Nick.
Yes, I can see her. I think she's hesitating. Precious?
Hello, Nick. I think for the capacity building thing, I think Zambia, we can facilitate that. It's just the financial constraints that can hinder us to do that. But with the support from CIDOC and other partners, I think we are capable of facilitating that within the region.
Well, that's very good. We've got several people now who are definitely interested, and we will follow this up and
yes,
make sure we
keep
in. We will be in touch. You've got my email address. I'll make sure that we can coordinate this, and I think we can. We can help. We can use not just CIDOC but also ICOM, as Terry was saying. As you may be aware that CIDOC doesn't. It's one of the international committees in ICOM. There are more than 30 of them, and they don't have very much infrastructure for organization. But that's not the case with ICOM. ICOM, the central organization in Paris, they have a full secretariat and library and all sorts of services. So if we can get ICOM to help us organize things, then we're in a good position. And I think possibly we could also try working with UNESCO. Does that sound like an interesting, a useful possibility, Terry?
Yes, Nick. UNESCO would be an interesting partner to include in this particular aspect.
They don't have, today, UNESCO doesn't have the resources that they had in the past for organizing this sort of thing, but they're a useful organization to have on board, I think. And it's, you know, they can help us with organization and logistics and so on, and getting in touch with people.
That's
so
true.
I think, and we have a good working relationship with UNESCO, so that wouldn't do any harm. So
yeah, true.
Well, that's I think that's great. So we're we've got a few minutes left for our workshop, but I'm going to add on to our final slide, perhaps the things that we want to take forward to CIDOC as messages to CIDOC. In fact, I will share this slide as I'm writing it. If I can, where are we? There we are. That's the one. So messages to CIDOC. So I was going to write down systems. These are the concerns that you brought up. software, training, or those standards. Three CIDOC workshops there, and yeah, I made a spelling mistake there. There, I've put three things down as concerned. One is systems having access to free software, standards making them available online, and for training, organizing 3 CIDOC training workshops. I should say 3 regional, perhaps. So, any comments on that? Precious is thinking about something.
Nikki.
Would anybody like to add additional points to this? As it
Nick,
were,
yes,
yes.
Apparently Antoinette raised her hand.
Ah, Antoinette, please.
No, okay, no, yes.
No, she didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
I just want to say with regard to the regional workshop, can you also, it would be nice to organize one in Namibia for Namibian museums.
To organize a training workshop.
Yes, in all this in software and
Okay, so Terry, how does that fit in? Would that fit in with your idea of doing regional workshops?
I think we all as countries have those many challenges. Let me say, the reason why I proposed regional workshops is that we have so many countries on the continent experiencing the same challenges, and it would be good to do regional and get a sample from different countries come together and do this training. And also it is an opportunity for people to share what they're experiencing in their countries, and not just getting everything and learning from the lecturer to themselves. It's an opportunity for them to interact with people from different countries and also increasing their networking networking capacities. So if we do a regional one, the people that are trained regionally, they can also get back and also do it for their fellow countrymen.
I think
because otherwise CIDOC will not manage to keep.
Mais c'est reparti, c'est reparti. Pour moi, c'est reparti.
Okay, I can hear somebody else. I think it's our organizer who, yes, she was just not muted. Okay, so
sorry about this. We have some of the sessions were blocked. Was it? I think we had some kind of stop. It was stopped in between. No.
No. We
Okay.
haven't
Anyway.
had any trouble.
Okay. Great. So please go on.
We're just wrapping up now. So
yeah, sure.
As I was saying, so we've got these points. This is going to require further discussion, obviously, but I think the discussion's been useful, and it's been good to have everybody taking part. please, if you have extra things that you want to say, questions, you want to get in touch with CIDOC, please don't hesitate to write to us. You can write to me, or as I said, you can contact CIDOC through the CIDOC website. And I hope this is not the end of the discussion, but just the beginning.
Yeah.
And so thank you all very much for participating. And I'd like to say, wish you all a very good afternoon, good evening, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. It has been a pleasure being a
Thank
part
you,
of
Nick,
this.
and thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Well,
You.
bye.